Hello and welcome to Footnotes, the Cicerone podcast, a podcast to inspire you about outdoor travel and activities in the UK and across the world. I'm Joe, and you can email me with your thoughts or questions on live@cicerone.co.uk. Our guest this week is the legendary Nicky Spinks, one of the UK's most accomplished fell, mountain and ultra runners. She's been at the top of the ultra scene for years. Nicky is probably most famous for her records and FKTs of the classic UK fell running rounds of the Bob Graham, Paddy Buckley and Charlie Ramsey rounds. She's also popularised the frankly astonishing practice of completing double rounds, 200-kilometre long mountain adventures lasting a couple of days. This summer, Nicky reclaimed her Lakeland 24-hour record and then went on to come third in the infamous Tor de Géants race in the Italian Alps. On top of all that, Nicky's one of the kindest and friendliest runners out there, an elite runner that, like us, just loves spending time in the mountains. So here's my interview with Nicky, talking about her amazing performance at Tor de Géants. What is the TDG then? What is the Tor de Géants, Nicky?
Yeah, the Tor de Géants, well, they call it 330 kilometres, but it's actually about 360.
Really?
Yeah. They've remeasured it this year, and I think they've called it 356 or something. And the altitude as well, the climb, I think they say, is 24,000 metres, but most people get it to about 26 or 7. That almost paves the way for the Italian way of doing things.
Okay.
So, yeah, I remember the first year I did the race, 2019, I looked at all of people's splits and I figured out that some of the distances between checkpoints couldn't be right because people were just taking way too long, like 5 hours to do 10K or something. So I worked it all out like that. I was going to say not as anal as road running, where you know, every distance, 1 kilometre, 2 kilometres and all that. You wouldn't have that for 360 kilometres, would you?
Good way to go mad.
Yeah. Yeah, knowing how many you've really got to go. Ultra running's all about time. But anyway, yeah, there's Tor de Géants, and it's round the Aosta Valley so it starts at Courmayeur and goes round the southern loop, and then round over the top and back. And I hadn't, apart from the UTMB, I'd not really been in the area at all. Tor de Monte Rosa nips into the top bit, Gressoney. So I'd been in bits of it, but not round the whole lot. And I think in 2019, I just fell in love with it, really. But obviously, it was the first time I did it and I hadn't been before. So it was like, I want to go back to learn more about it. And my big plan was to go in the summer and do it as a hiking route and stay at all these wonderful huts that they have up in the mountains. But that didn't happen. So this year when I went back, I was winging it. I didn't even know I was going till a week before.
Oh, really?
Well, the Italian rules in August were that you had to self-isolate when you got there.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that. So I wasn't going until they dropped that. And they only dropped that on the 30th of August. So the race was I think I went out on the 9th or something.
Okay.
So it was all very chuck a load of stuff. I drove in the end as well. I ditched my flights because of the COVID and just because I didn't know if I was going or not. So it's just easier to chuck everything in the van.
I think a few people did that on their trips to the Alps this year to be a little bit more in control of their own personal destiny, rather than flights and things like that, sort of simply getting locked down. So this was the second time round at the race. It sounds, I guess, amazing to sort of put yourself through a couple of 200-mile races. That sounds amazing to me, anyway. So that first time in 2019, did you immediately want to come back to the race after having done it then?
Yeah, it was to see more of it and to do better. Because I did anything wrong, but the first day you go up to 3,200 meters 3 times and it was very snowy and icy. And I think that really affected everybody's lungs because it wasn't just me that had this hacking cough, but and I wanted to go back and just I think, look after myself better in the first few days so that I would feel better towards the end. Whether that worked or not. Yeah, it did work, actually. It did work. So, but I think it was also, it's just the whole atmosphere, the marshals in the tents and the marshals in the huts and the whole organization. It's really low key, which I love that. I love that about the Ultra Tour Monte Rosa. Some of it's, you know, like the website's a bit clunky and it takes you ages to find stuff. But I think in a way that if you do find everything, it's almost like you've put the effort in, you put more effort in. They're not giving it you on a plate. They're just, you know, you don't get shepherded round everywhere and told exactly what to do. You have to sort of find it all out.
Well done for finding the secret FAQs page on the website. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, this kind of special nature of it, of the people and the huts and the other runners and volunteers, is that, have you not found there's that sort of magic in other races to that extent?
Yeah, I think like the low key ones. There's I'm probably going to say it wrong, but Le Chapelle Belle that's down. Yeah, that's the same, very low key. Gran Pyrenees and Monte Rosa. So I think I signed up for the UTMB years ago because it's the one to do and everything, but I just wasn't that impressed with it. Just wasn't for me. I felt like I was running in a crowd of people, like in the London Marathon, rather than running in the mountains, which is what I go and do these things for. I mean, obviously I'm in a race, but I don't want to be elbowed out the way.
Yeah, and it can be quite rough for the first few 100 meters at UTMB.
Yeah, and I suppose that, you know, the organisers, it's not their fault. It's, you know, one race is for one and one is for the other. The UTMB are fantastic at managing all those people, and they can't do it without all the rules, because people just, they're not very good at reading instructions or doing what they're told. So yeah, if you've got a lot of people, you need to manage them with strict rules.
Tor de Géants, it's a big and it's a big and famous race, but as you're saying, it has this lower key vibe, and I think it's probably really easy for a lot of trail and ultra runners and fell runners to forget about the fact that there are other races out there. There's hundreds of races in the Alps. In fact, there's dozens of 100-milers and 200-milers around in the Alps. But for some reason, we only think about things like UTMB.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think it's good that, and I think unfortunately they need to all pick the same time of year.
Yeah,
and I think maybe. Because I know Lizzie Hawker, when she was setting up Monte Rosa, she could only have that weekend because the weekend after was the Tor de Géants, and I think the weekend before is the UTMB. So if they struggle, if they're going to be in the Alps, fitting it round all the other races that are already there. And then of course there's the snow and the sheep, I think, and the other sort of things that go, because I think in summer obviously it's really busy hiking, and in winter it's skiing. So all these races seem to be August. So if you want 100-miler, there are a lot in the Alps, but they'll all be in August probably.
Yeah, got it. So TDG twice as far as UTMB and any other kind of 100-miler out there. Is it twice as hard?
I think it depends how you take it, because the cutoff is really quite reasonable. You could walk it with little sleep.
Okay.
Because you get from Sunday afternoon, morning when we set off, till the following Saturday, 6 days. Because I haven't really worked it out, but I know people like Mark Townsend, people have walked it and said it was sort of not comfortable, because you do end up cutting down on your sleep more than what I do. I finished on Thursday afternoon, so with 3 hours sleep. So if you want more sleep, you're going to have to go for longer, obviously. So I think in the way that the UTMB is 100 miles, but for 46 hours, which is quite tight. You've got to keep going. You can't, there might be more checkpoints, but you can't stop at them. So
Yeah. And TDG has life bases, is that what they're called?
yeah, I think there's 6 proper ones where you get your bag. And it's the same bag which has its pluses and minuses. So it follows you around, and it's not huge. Well, not as huge as you'd like it.
Yeah.
But so it takes quite a lot of packing to put all, because it's everything that you need. But the food that they provide is really good, but you still need everything that you might need. And you're allowed to sleep at the life bases. And before COVID, you were allowed to sleep at the mountain huts, but it was more restricted this year. But yeah.
So the bag that follows you around, hopefully it always gets to the next life base before you do. But does that allow you to be able to do it without a crew and sort of extra help?
Yeah, so in 2019 I had Paul Turney supporting me, and he had an extra bag. But actually, I think maybe because there was 2 bags, it just all got very complicated.
Okay.
Because I could take more stuff, so I did. And then in 2021, this year, I was self-supported. Paul was out there, but he was running. So yeah, I just went self-supported, and actually I was far more organised. Although I knew about the race before. In the first year I did it, Paul was telling me lots of things about the route that was coming up, which was very helpful, so it could get me prepared. So I was taking the right things when I left the checkpoint. But this year I was just a lot more organised. And then Paul's girlfriend Sarah was there, and she did help me on a couple of occasions when she could double back after seeing Paul. Yeah. It is nice to have somebody there, especially towards the latter stages where your brain's really fuzzy. You can start looking at your watch and stuff, and you just don't really know where you are, what you've got coming up, or anything.
Yeah. I've got lots of questions that are stemming from what you're saying. The first one I want to ask about is about how helpful it was knowing that there is somebody like Paul, or somebody that you know, also out there going through the same thing as you are. Was that at all helpful, or not really that relevant?
Yeah, because I was asking Sarah how Paul was getting on. Because actually he was sleeping, he's done it a few times, and he's always slept a lot more than me. And when I slept for 3 hours last time, he was like, I can't believe you just did that. And I was like, well, why would you sleep for 4 if you can sleep for 1? You don't know. I mean, you can't, I don't know how long you could go on for sleeping for 1 hour a night. But that was just the way I approached it, and he approached it like much more like that this time. And so he was actually only sleeping, I think he was sleeping for 20 minutes or 20 minutes, but more often. So there's lots and lots of different strategies you can sort of try with the sleep thing, because of course you can't just sleep when it's dark because you're not in a life base.
Yeah,
you have to plan a bit, so you might be trying to sleep when actually you don't really want to sleep.
Do most people go into the race with a sleeping plan, and then they try to keep to it, or they decide to immediately abandon it? Because I can imagine that you say, okay, I think maybe my plan's going to be to sleep 2 hours a night, and you get to the middle of the first night and try and get your head down, and presumably just not going to switch off. So do you have to sort of make it up as you go along, in effect?
You do slightly, yes. Whichever you set off doing, because some of the live bases are better for sleeping at than others. And like you say, sometimes you can just lie down and you're not sleepy. So I just get back up then. I think there's no point. Although this time I still lay there for an hour on one of them because my feet were swelling up, and I needed to sit off my feet. My feet needed a rest more than I did. So I sort of lay there and I was sorting out my rucksack, but I was only lay there because it was too noisy and stuff to sleep. But I knew if I got up, my feet weren't going to last the rest of the race. They needed to dry out and recover a bit. So I suppose, and then because I did that, when it got to oh, that night was really rough. That was 9:30 at night, and I had intended to sleep for an hour, and I didn't. And I got back up at 10:30 and set off, and I was all over the place. I couldn't. There was a row of runners in front of me, and they all turned right, and I just carried on going, and then was like, where is everybody off? Right over the other side of the hillside. And I mean, it's quite well marked. You don't go wrong until, yeah. And then I thought, right, I need to find somebody to run with, and then we can keep each other awake. And it took me a while, because these other runners were the half tour that had set off. So they weren't my pace at all. They were faster than me.
Okay.
But they were stopping at the checkpoints way more than I was. So it was really odd that they kept passing me, but I couldn't latch onto them because they were too fast.
Yeah, that's so confusing when that happens.
Eventually, I found one man that would let me run with him. He was looking for somebody as well, because it was his first ultra, and we were going into their first night, and he didn't want to be on his own, which is, yeah, it's a good plan not to be on your own overnight. We were going up and over this high pass as well, and he was a German but living in America, and we stuck together the whole night. But come about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, God, we were all over the place again. We were actually walking down this track, and we were bumping into each other.
Really?
Because we were like half asleep.
Yeah.
And we sat down, and I thought, this is wrong. This is a slightly downhill track, and we're walking and sitting. I should be running this or sleeping, so that when I wake up, I want to run it. We're very, very, this is the worst time, this is the worst way to lose time, by ambling down a track where you should be going a lot faster. It should be a lot more efficient. So we got to the next checkpoint. And I've never done this before. It was a really busy checkpoint. I saw people lying down on the floor, and I just went, I'm going to lie down on the floor. And for 10 minutes, I just went to sleep. And I woke up, and he was still asleep. And then I was like, it's 7 o'clock and it's daylight, and I want to get going, and I might be able to do 100 hours. And I sort of prodded him a bit. And he shook it. I was like, oh, I don't know this man. Shall I just leave him? I thought, no. We said we were going to stick together, and I don't want to leave him. So I shook him a bit more. I thought, if he really argues now, I'll just go. Yeah. But no, he woke up and he wanted to go too. So that was a different change. 10 minutes. I usually find 10 minutes is enough. Yeah. And my body clock must have said that as well, because I didn't set an alarm, which, I could have been there for hours, only it was really, really noisy again. But when you do need the sleep, you can sleep throughout anything, can't you?
Mm. But 10 minutes was all it took to give you a good revival. Yeah. It's cool. Very cool.
And the daylight, I think daylight makes a big difference.
Yeah. This is the bit I'm personally most fascinated by, is the fuzzy brain part of it. The long routes and runs that I've done in the past, I've not personally had any hallucinations, but what's tended to happen with me is a bit of a weird sort of subconscious shift, I suppose, where I kind of a bit more like dreaming, but while being awake, and quite strange things going on mentally, whilst not actually seeing them through hallucinations. So that's the thing that's really put me off wanting to do something longer, like Tor de Géants. But is that part of the fun of it, maybe? Or does that go away after a while? Or do you just learn to embrace that weirdness?
I think we all get different things, because I've never seen hallucinations either. But actually, Berhard was seeing all the trees were covered in Christmas decorations. And that's what he was that's why he was bumping into me, because he was looking about like this. And I'm like, what on earth are you looking at? And he's like, it's decorations. It's like, no, there isn't any decorations. These are just pine trees.
Wow.
Yeah. But I've never got that. My sort of fuzziness is more, I think it's more, I just go into myself a little bit and stumble along. And maybe because I'm really, really focused on going as fast as I can in the best way as possible. So that's when I got annoyed with myself, because I knew I needed to do something to sort that out. And I think also if you did it, you'd find out what sleep you could manage on, so that you didn't feel like that. Yeah. I think that's the thing. You've always got to be aware of the fact, right, how bad am I getting? what do I do? Do I need to sleep? And then that will sort this out. And then you wake up, and it is incredible that the body just thinks, oh, fine, yeah, we've had some sleep. And it doesn't go, well, we haven't had 8 hours, we've just had 10 minutes.
Yeah. I think you just hit upon something there, Nicky, was where you said that you're mostly concentrate on trying to, I guess, get the best out of yourself and concentrate on going as fast as you can at any moment in time. And maybe that's where the difference is. You're focusing in on that present moment, rather than letting, maybe as I've done, letting my mind drift off to all sorts of strange places, and then half an hour or 3 hours later realize that you're sort of just bumbling along when actually you should be running, for example.
Yeah, because Berhard, with it being his first ultra as well, he said to me thank you at the end for pushing him, because he did a lot better than what he would have done without me, because I was pushing me as well. Because he said the same. He would probably have, he did take quite a few photos, but he'd have taken more photos and had a lot longer at the checkpoints and things like that. But I think you could still enjoy it, but you do feel like you've got the most out of yourself when you do a good time. I don't like finishing a race and think, oh, I could have pushed myself a bit harder. I do think if you can drink 5 pints after anything, you haven't tried hard enough, basically.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Although, even after finishing the Tor de Géants, I had 2 pints, and I was still because I was on such a massive high being third woman. I never imagined in a month of Sundays I would get anywhere near. I was hoping for top 10, being 11th last year. So yeah, I think that's what was keeping me going a lot of the time. The first time I got told where I was 6th, and then 4th somehow, and then 3rd. And as soon as I was 3rd, that was it. That was it. I was just pushing. But the trouble is knowing where you are. I always find it's an advantage, not advantage, but the disadvantage is you stop looking after yourself because you get so focused on trying to keep going, and you can only keep going, pushing yourself for that hard for maybe 5 or 6 hours. And then if you haven't looked after yourself, your body's just going to go, stop, crash.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's just say, I mean, congratulations on that 3rd place. That's amazing, and it's also really cool to, to exceed your expectations like that. I mean, Tor de Géants is a very competitive race. So, how was that competition against the other women in the race? And did you know when you were passing people and when there were people up ahead? And because it's often dark out and there's the field spread out.
And you get the sleep, so I think even the winners have to sleep.
Yeah.
So you can go through a checkpoint and overtake somebody because they're asleep, but then, they then overtake you when you're asleep. So again, being told where you are early in the race is a bit, it doesn't really make a lot of difference, because obviously at some point you're going to sleep and you don't know how long everybody else is going to sleep for. So yeah, I think finding out where I was, I did promise myself I didn't really want to know early on, because I wanted just to look after myself and not get too competitive and start looking about, where are the people and stuff. But I was climbing really quite well. My idea was to stay within myself and then get to Tuesday, from Sunday to Tuesday, feeling better than I did last time, because I felt on Tuesday last time, I felt a wreck, and I took most of Tuesday off. I said to Paul, I'm just going to have Tuesday off. I hadn't eaten enough, and I'd maybe pushed myself, but my lungs, it felt like I'd got cut in half. I think it was the cold air. I just couldn't breathe in, deep breathing. And I didn't think I was going to be able to finish the race until I sorted that out. And just taking it easy for a day, stopping in the checkpoints, eating as much food as what I could see at these checkpoints. I did recover, but I didn't want to do that again. So I wanted to sort of manage myself better from the start, eat more proper food. And so I was running along and I was thinking, these guys are usually the guys that I don't catch, American runners. And yeah, just guys that I don't usually sort of see I wouldn't expect to see. So I thought I must be going a bit faster than what I think I am. And also there wasn't many people. You could tell by, you're further up the field because it's more spread out. But a marshal did tell me, and I think he said I was 10th, and I was like, oh, I don't want to know, don't tell me. He's like, why? I said, oh, it's too early to know. This was only Monday morning or something.
So how many days did it take you overall then? Or how many hours, I should say?
It was 101 hours, yeah, just over. So that's why I was pushing probably early on, because I thought I wanted the magic 100 hours.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think we just did 101 and maybe 5 minutes or something. But I did 106 last time.
Oh,
With
okay.
the same amount of sleep, so I was quite a bit slower somewhere. And actually, this time I spent longer in the checkpoints because I realised that without Paul sorting my kit out, I couldn't just go in, give him the stuff, ask him to like charge up my batteries and stuff, and then go for a sleep. I needed to sort all my stuff out when I got into the checkpoint. I mean, I don't have a lot of stuff, but you need to charge your phone up because they want to get hold of you. And this year I also wanted to charge. My watch packed up on me last year, so I was charging that up this year. You need to set your own alarm to wake yourself up, things like that. And I always packed my rucksack when I got into the checkpoint before I went to sleep, so that I could just wake up and go. Because you wake up and you're a bit fuzzy. I wanted to, yeah. And also, if I'm asleep, I'll be thinking, oh, I need to remember to put that in my rucksack and that in my rucksack. So if I know my rucksack's ready to go, then I'm more likely to go to sleep. But then, so all that was taking, if I wanted to sleep for an hour, I think I was using up half an hour before and half an hour afterwards in just sorting myself out. So yeah, I spent longer in the checkpoints this time, I think. But that was because I was managing myself, and I obviously managed myself okay, really.
Cicerone have two guidebooks that cover the Tor de Géants route. The first is Andy Hodges' book To the Giants Trail, and the second is Gillian Price's Walking and Trekking in the Gran Paradiso. If you'd like to run, walk or fastpack the Tor de Géants route, then these are the guides to give you the information to have an amazing time on the trail. Are there sort of key bits of kit that really did help make things go more smoothly, or that kind of slightly unusual things that you really couldn't have done without? Or is it just your normal mountain trail running stuff and that's it?
Yeah, I suppose you sort of rely on, there's actually this watch, this Fenix watch that I had. It's brilliant. It's the so last year the battery did eventually give out, but the Sun 2 battery does last longer, so I didn't take a charger. But that one I was charging it up, but I found I could put the charger on my wrist and actually have the alarm as well. And it had one of those silent alarms. I was probably the only person in the hall using a silent alarm. Everybody else's phones went off when they wanted to get up. But anyway, I put that on, and that was really good, being able to charge the watch while wearing the watch, while using the alarm. And then also, because I set it up, well, with a minimal amount of stuff, but it was giving me the altitude, and that's really, because I hadn't been able to get out and acclimatize, I wanted to know when I was getting to 2,200 meters or whatever, so that if my breathing was going and if I was feeling shitty, then I could look at my watch and go, oh, well, you're at 2,600 meters. So, and it was only ever 100 meters out, which I thought was good. It's also really good if you're climbing to know, if you're going to a 3,200 meter climb, to know that you've got that much meterage to do. You start off and you're at 600 and you're like, okay, this is a long climb.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah. And poles. I'm a big believer in poles now. I use them all the time.
I'm guessing everybody uses poles for Tor de Géants.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, but I think the British aren't as pole mad as the Europeans are. I did do my first few hundreds without poles, and I was like, everyone was like, "Where are your poles? Have you lost them?" No, I'm British.
Yeah, yeah, cool. So I'm curious about these long races, and you've done a couple of other particularly long things, like your double rounds and Barkley and things like that. Maybe we'll come on to that. But what is it about those really long things that you particularly enjoy, as opposed to I don't know, like 100 kilometers on one of the rounds in the UK, or even shorter races, 50 miles or marathons, fell races? What is it about these really long things that you think are fantastic?
I think it's the whole looking after yourself, and just it's more like a holiday in a way, being on the mountains for me. You know, I love spending hours and hours on a mountain. And it's the whole management of myself. I mean, I don't enjoy the whole 5 days, or Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 4 days. I mean, there's a fair bit of that. I'm swearing at myself and my feet. And my feet were so sore again. I don't think that different shoes, different socks, I don't think any of that would have made any difference. You know, they get really hot, they swell up. We got soaked, they got wet through, they went all crinkly. I didn't actually get any blisters. They're just really, really sore. So the last sort of day is fairly painfully feet sore, or something sore generally. But I don't know. I think it's just, you know, you're doing it, you know, you're looking after yourself. And I don't know, I never run out of anything to think about. People say, what do you think about all that time? Well, you think about what you're going to eat, or the views, or the person you're talking to, or or your feet. No, it's but I do like a 20-mile fell race. So I mean, I like a decent climb. I think if I'm looking at a race in the UK, as soon as it sort of doesn't have much climb per mile, I know it's going to be a harder one for me, because I'm not a sort of flatter trail runner person. And I find it slightly annoying that all the nice road runners with the heels that kick up to their bums still, they just come running past me like they're enjoying this flat piece of road, and I'm just feeling like, where's the hill? Where's the hill?
Damn them and their perfect strides.
The cadence. That's the first thing I turn off on my watch.
Oh yeah.
Don't tell me how rubbish my cadence is.
Yeah. So what are the worst things about it? What makes you think, well, maybe not any more of that sort of thing?
Yeah, the sore feet afterwards is pretty painful for days.
Yeah, how is it recovering from there?
Yeah, so your sleep's all over the place. You tend to sleep for 2 hours solid and then wake up starving.
Okay.
So I mean, eating whatever you want whenever you want is great for a bit, but even then you get a bit sick of it. You get sick of being too hungry, and also you get a sore mouth from eating. But I think my feet don't actually love ultras. They don't like getting hot. Usually after a race, I elevate them. I'll sleep with them on a couple of pillows to try and, because they swell up like mad. But this year, as well as doing that, I'd taken an Esky out, an ice cooler, and I had it by the side of my bed. And when I woke up in the night with my feet tingling, and like they really feel like they're going to burst out of the skin, I just heave them over the side of the bed and slap them in this bucket of water. And although I didn't really want to do it, as soon as they were in the cold water, it was just like, oh yeah. And I just sort of lay there for about 10 minutes until they were way too cold. And then I toweled them off and went back to sleep. But that was a good feet management afterwards this time, because last year they just kept me awake, just throbbing and itching. And yeah, I mean, I think the Italians say I should drink more, but I was drinking quite a lot. I think it's the altitude as well that, you know, I wasn't acclimatized. So your hands tend to swell up at altitude as well, don't they? So, but you can move those a lot better, and you can keep them up, whereas your feet, everything's still like flowing down to the bottom of your feet, staying there. There's not many bad things about actually doing the Tor de Géants. There's very little road in it as well. I think there's probably more road in the UTMB than there is in the Tor de Géants.
Okay.
Because there's long road sections in the UTMB that I think, oh no, I don't want to do that again.
They really hurt. Yeah, they hurt.
Yeah. And although it's really hot in the valleys, really hot, say 20 to 25, the weather on the UTMB is usually it's nice because you're up high quite a lot, so it's cooler for me, which because I don't do well in the heat.
Yeah. Were there things that you did specifically in your training for preparation for Tor de Géants, or was it just kind of your normal mountain training that you would do otherwise? Anything that you sort of adapted for TDG?
Well, usually I would do more ascent, but this year I was already doing the Ladies Lake District 24-hour record in August.
Ah, yes.
So that was just perfect, both training really. So yeah, I was doing back-to-back big days in the Lake District and in Scotland when I could get there. So trying to get, say, 3,000-4,000 meters in a day, which is quite hard in the UK. Doing the second day, I think it's important to do the second day. The day that you don't really want to do because you're tired is the important sort of day.
We could well be talking about your ladies' 24-hour record as the subject of this, such as that achievement. But that must have been good preparation for Tor de Géants, do you think?
Yeah, it was. I was very worried though that I hadn't recovered when I went out to the Tor de Géants because it was only 4 weeks. And the last time I did the Ladies Lake District record in 2011, it took me 6 months to really recover. I went to do the Gran Pyrenees 6 weeks later, and it was shocking. I was really, really tired. So I did nothing this time really between the two, between the Lake District record and the Tor de Géants. And that's the other reason why I didn't want to be competitive until I didn't want to know what other people were doing. Because for me, it was just about getting around the Tor de Géants. Especially as just with COVID, getting out there was just such a pain.
Yeah.
You just felt lucky to be on the start line and you just wanted to not ruin yourself and finish it, do the full course. And because it had been such an effort to even get there that, you wanted to appreciate the whole experience. So yeah, I was probably quite, I had no expectations at the Tor de Géants, which again is probably a good thing when you set off on a race like that.
So when you say between the 24-hour record and TDG, you did pretty much nothing. What does that actually mean? Pretty much nothing, or what are the actual numbers involved there?
No, we have a series of races in the Dark Peak. I would have gone and done those. They're like 6 miles on the fells. And then I think just out with the dogs, basically. Yeah, but nothing that I would say is training. But the legs felt, obviously pretty tired. But I think I did just bounce. It was the right amount of time I worked really hard for the Ladies Lake District record because I knew it was right at the top of my limit. I'm 10 years older than I was. And I knew what I was doing in 2011 and I couldn't really better that, being 10 years older and in COVID. So,
but you did.
Well, I did. Yeah, I did. I did a lot of speed work and a lot of hills.
Yeah. Okay. Well done on that one too, Nicky. That's fantastic. You mentioned right at the start that you planned on going to the Aosta Valley where TDG is and maybe hiking it or something like that. Is that something that you still would like to do? And do you want to go there for some more casual running and walking?
Yeah, so I got the 2 books, and I also, while I was there, I thought my husband would love this. The huts are amazing. They're just, you don't expect to see a hut on top of a mountain where there isn't any vehicular access. So you open the door and there's this little wooden hut with benches and a fire and men cooking ravioli and stuff. And and bunk beds, and it's just lovely. And it would be lovely to sort of be able to spend more time in them and look at the view and sort of, so I'd love to go around. And also to acclimatise, I'd love to go out, say, in July next year and go around, if not all of the route. And that's why I got the book, so that I could sort of follow it. Because it's amazing when you're racing, you don't sort of take it all in much.
And then half of it's in the dark anyway.
Yes, and there's one hut that was in the dark last year and it was in the thick fog this year.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a shame, really, isn't it? Such beautiful scenery that it does feel during the race that like it's a bit of a shame that you can't actually properly enjoy that view.
Yeah. So you see pictures of other people, other runners that at the same spot as you, but they're in daylight, and you're like, whoa, there's all those mountains,
Yeah.
the views and stuff. But I got different views this time because I was 6 hours different most of the way, because I made most of that up early on.
I think probably got time for one last question as to whether you've ever done parkrun before.
I have, yeah. Well, I was going to say a big fan. I can't be a big fan when I haven't even done 50, but no, Dewsbury's my local one. And yeah, I was going down there, well, yeah, maybe 30 times I've done it in 5 years. I really love the sort of whole setup of the park runs. Dewsbury's quite a quiet one. We were getting sort of 100 people, which is nice, but that's because there's a hill in it apparently, and you go up it 4 times. But it's one of these really, really slight gradient ones that does drag on the 4th time round. But I did one in Guernsey, and I've done the Huddersfield one. But yeah, and I'd like to do the one up in Girvan. Apparently there's one up there now, because that'll be sort of 20 minutes away from me when we move up there. I love it, and when I go, I love seeing all the everybody going around with their pushchairs and their dogs and everything, and I stay afterwards and sort of clap everybody round and see people in. Yeah,
it's a special atmosphere, really, isn't it?
Yeah,
definitely a bit of a contrast to 200-mile ultramarathons, which have their own atmosphere too. And I've always found they make you appreciate how, at least for myself, how much of a slow runner I am when you get overtaken by 11-year-old boys and 9-year-old girls as you're wheezing round. That's the normal story for me.
Yeah, or the man with the dog. He's not getting dragged by the dog. He's just running with his dog. Oh.
I hope that you enjoyed the latest episode of Footnotes, the Cicerone podcast. I'd love to know what you think, or if there's anything you'd like us to cover in future episodes. Please email live@cicerone.co.uk or leave a review on your podcast platform. You can follow or subscribe to the podcast to make sure you don't miss new episodes, or you can sign up to our newsletter for all our latest news, events and guidebooks. Visit cicerone.co.uk for details. Please come and join us on our social channels. We're on all the main ones at Cicerone Press, and we also have a Facebook group, Cicerone Connect, where you can meet and chat to other outdoor enthusiasts. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you soon.